In this video, I'm going to talk about the catch can installation that I've done to this car, which is a BMW E70 X5 3.0 SD. So it's got the M57 T2, the twin turbocharged engine, but pretty much the same as the straight 3.0 diesel, which is the single turbocharger. Unlike other catch can installations that I've seen where they delete the stock crankcase ventilation valve, which lives up here, looks like a little oil cap, and there's a pipe that runs along the side down here. What I have done is left all of that in place, and I have just tapped it straight off here. And the reason for that is with the Provent 200, and the reason I used that catch can is I found a really good research paper on a whole bunch of different catch cans, and they rated the Provent 200 by Man and Hummel as like by far the best. And my own experience, because I've got this on two cars, this and a gasoline direct injection Porsche, and it is such a fantastic system. It's quite unreal. It catches 100% of the oil. The downside of it though is that it uses its own pressure regulating valve, and if you use that in conjunction with a stock valve, so you've got two in line, and your crankcase pressures can just go a bit crazy. So what I've done is I have blanked off the pressure control valve on the Provent, so it's basically like a straight through system. So it's just working as a filter without any pressure regulation. The pressure regulation is all done by the stock system, and the results have been outstanding. It collects, from what I can see, 100% of the oil that's coming through the standard air oil separator that would otherwise be going into your intake manifold. The other day I had to do some high pressure fuel pump work, so the intake manifold had to come out, and I had a good look inside and everything, and all I'm getting is a slight bit of carbon build-up, just light dusty carbon, which is coming through the EGR system, but there is no oil, no nothing. In here, you often, if you just pull off this pipe here, which goes into the throttle and EGR valve, that's normally dripping with oil, that's just bone dry. There's just nothing there at all. The system, I've had this on for about a year now, driven about 10,000 kilometers, and I reckon it caught 600 mil of oil. Pretty impressive. Yeah, it's really, really nice system. And the nice thing about doing it the way I've done, using the stock system, is you can see the two pipes that come off here. It just goes down to the front right of the car. This car has two radiators, the center and the one on the left. So there's lots of room down in here. So that's where I installed it. Very easy just to make a bracket for that to be mounted, and where you can collect the oil and that sort of thing. So I'll show you how to do that. With the cover removed, the brace along here, and also that pipe that goes down to the turbos removed, we can see the pipes that we're talking about that we have connected things. That is the outlet, that little pipe there that comes from the stock CCV, which sort of lives back in here, and that one there which runs down to this pipe that would go onto there, which goes pre-turbo, is where this pipe normally lived before. So that one would go on there, that one would go down the bottom. So obviously all I've done is just spliced in the catch can in there. A couple of things for fitting this: the outlet pipe there, size is about 21 millimeters. The one that goes down is slightly larger, so it's close to 23 millimeters. The pipes that I used to go in here were 16 mils inside diameter, because they need to be small enough to go down here, and I found that did not restrict flow at all. It still worked perfectly okay. At the other end, this is the connection that I'd suggest for going on to the Provent, because the Provent connection points are 25 mil outside diameter, so you need a pipe that's 25 mil inside diameter. And the nice thing about these 16 mil pipes is these are 25 mil outside diameter, so that slots straight over the top. You join these using isocyanate glue, which holds the rubber perfectly, and that'll just never come apart, which is great. And then for these connections here, you'll just have to find some pipes that are going to fit onto these as well as join to these. That was a bit of a pain. You can see I've used an elbow here. I used these things. These have a really sharp barb on them, and because these are vacuum pipe, they're not pressure, so they're not going to come off. And also, if you wanted to remove these, it's close to impossible. You just destroy the inside of a pipe. They're so effective at holding, so that's why there's no clamps or anything there. You can also see where it comes out there. I've come out obviously sideways, put an elbow in here, and then put a couple of cable ties there. And the reason I've done that is to make sure these things don't come off, because this one can only come out this way, this one can only come out that way, and if these are locked together, then they just cannot move. I've also put a paint mark there on that one there, because that was the one that I found that was most problematic of maybe possibly trying to want to slide off. And so I put that on there so I can see that as a witness marker to show if that thing is starting to back off a little bit. But it's been on there for a good while now and I've had no problems at all. So this is where the unit is mounted on the inside of the front bumper on the right hand side. There's a bracket back here. There are a number of studs that just exist on the frame, so I've just made it work. There's another stud down the back here as well. So it's mounted in 3 separate points, big piece of aluminium, and then the Provent unit is mounted on this as well. The unit itself comes with a black, I think it's glass reinforced nylon strap, which is going to be pretty strong, but I just wanted to put another aluminium strap around it just to make sure that definitely didn't move. You can see where the input pipe and the output pipes connect to. You can't see it, but the back here is the pressure control valve that I've blanked off. A lot of catch cans, they'll have a tap at the bottom here so you can release all the fluid that's in it. The problem is with something like that is that the fluid will build up in here, and what I didn't want to do is obviously end up getting to this point here where it might, obviously this pipe's going up, but I didn't want to get to the point of here, and also I just wanted to be as little maintenance as possible. So this is just a one-way valve, so it will allow stuff to come out, but it won't allow it to go up. So when there's vacuum inside this whole thing, that completely blocks off, and for that, whenever it's driving, this thing's completely blocked off. So a small amount of oil will fill up in here, but the moment that the engine stops, the vacuum is released, the oil just drains out. This is my pot here. I've got a big sponge in it. It's just cable tied to a couple of spots here on this bracket, which looks like it would be for a radiator if it was fitted here, but obviously that's not. So I'm just using that to hold it. And the nice thing about this is obviously I've removed the trim from the inside here to get access to this. But I can just clip those 2 cable ties with that front splash guard which sits underneath the front of the car and just pull it out, empty it out, squeeze all the oil out of the sponge, and then just put that back in and put some new cable ties in there. So that seems to have worked really, really well. Here's a closer look at the bracket. They're M8 bolts that I've threaded into that aluminium, and then once you put the nut over the other side, that seems to just lock on there really, really nicely. 2 connection points here, and you can't see it, but there's a stud that comes out of the frame back here, which I've just bolted it to. On the underside of this one here, because I needed to sit this a bit further away because it was a bit of a funny shape here, what I've done is I put there's 2 nuts here, the one on the other side, which I've then put that onto the M8 thread that comes out of the frame, another one there, and then I've threaded that one over the top. And to give you an idea of how effective this is, that's the return pipe there that came from the bottom connection. That is absolutely bone dry inside. There is no oil residue at all. Nothing. On this one here, this is the pipe going to it. You can see it's just full of filthy oil. Here's a closer look at the unit. That's the strap that I made for it, just to go around there. The strap that holds it on, it's got this little clip here, so you can release that, and then you can either, because there are 4 different spots on here where you can have this at different levels, as well as these little notches here which allow you to sort of rotate it a little bit at a time and lock it in place. So you just have to find out what works best for you. There's a pressure control valve there, the cap over the top I can just remove, and that's all been blanked off again. I'll show you exactly how I did that. It's not just a case of gumming that up. And the top here, there's the filter that lives inside. And whilst it might look like that the filter is the thing that's filtering out all the oil, it really doesn't seem to be the case. It seems that this whizzing around and centrifugal effect of the air and the inertia of all the oil droplets being flung to the outside is the thing that is separating it all out. Because then when you go down to the bottom, you know, on the walls down in here, that is bone dry. There's next to nothing on that at all. And all it's doing is just dripping down the inside of the filter and then dripping down the bottom. So the pressure regulator on the Provent unit has this spring in it, which is the pressure controlled spring,
basically what it does, it either allows movement, so at more vacuum it allows that to be pulled in against the spring pressure, and then that reduces the vacuum that's allowed to come out the other side. So this is what's going on with the pressure control valve. That would be in there like that, and that just, you get your finger around that and that just pops off pretty easily. This is the diaphragm here, and so that spring on the outside is resisting it being pulled in and sealing against that face there. That's just plastic, but it's going to seal hard against that when it's pulled all the way in, and it's going to, obviously with that spring pressure and depending on the amount of vacuum inside, allow that to be released. So this is what I've got, just a piece of plastic tube which I just chopped off one of these sealant nozzles, made that 15mm long, and mate, that is not coming out. Now I'm just going to fill everything up, like trying to get that off now as close to impossible, so there's no way that that thing's going to activate, and I'm going to fill everything both inside and out with sealant. And there it is there, full of sealant. So I'll put the cap back on that after it's cured, and she should be good to go. If you do want to close down the whole EGR system so it doesn't put any soot from the exhaust into your engine, the little vacuum hose there, you can just pull that off, shove a golf tee in there and just put that to the side. The way this EGR valve works is it sits in here and gets pulled that way and opens up the line from the EGR cooler when vacuum is applied to it. So that is controlled by a solenoid, but if you block that off completely, the solenoid will still work, but the valve won't move at all, so no soot will be going in there. Again, I'm not advocating that you do that, but if you are having problems with it, that may be something that you want to do.